Locked On NFL Draft coverage is presented by Ultimate Football GM. You think you can run an NFL franchise? Visit ultimate-gm.com to play the ultimate NFL simulation game. Start your dynasty today with the number one overall pick in the 2023 draft. The Carolina Panthers have taken Alabama quarterback Bryce Young. I'm Peter Bukowski with Julian Council from Locked On Panthers. And Julian, this has been an open secret for a long time now. And so why do you think the Panthers ultimately landed on Bryce Young as opposed to CJ Stroud or one of these other quarterbacks?
They looked at the tape from the last 2 years and saw that Bryce Young was the best quarterback in college football the past 2 seasons. I understand that CJ Stroud might have all the measurables you're looking for at 6'3", 220 pounds, strong-armed, accuracy. But when you watch Bryce Young, he makes magic on the field. Being able to take an Alabama offense that, honestly, outside of Jahmyr Gibbs, did not have that much NFL talent and be able to drag them across the finish line in games at Texas this past fall, getting him to overtime in LSU and Baton Rouge, getting him down the field or a chance to win that game against Tennessee. Bryce Young did so much more with less this past season, a year after winning the Heisman Trophy. Arguably, he was more impressive this past year than he was in 2021 when he did win the Heisman Trophy there at Alabama. He's one of the smartest quarterbacks in the NFL and now being here, but in college football, the S2 score that's been made a lot of recently, testing the 98th percentile. Look at a guy who can process. Look at a guy who can put the ball where it needs to be. They look at somebody who can maneuver the pocket and play off script, and they felt like this is a guy with the leadership, with the cool, calm demeanor who can be the franchise quarterback here in Carolina, hopefully for the next 10, 15 years.
The question with Bryce Young is going to be size. He's 5'10". He weighed in over 200 pounds at the combine. I don't know anyone who believes he played over 200 pounds at Alabama over the last couple seasons. So what are the reasons you think Carolina ultimately sold themselves on a guy who is going to be an all-time outlier as the number one overall pick in terms of size, and then has to go be their starting quarterback?
Yeah, it's a concern for sure, but Carolina, apparently they have a plan for him. And like last week during a press conference leading up to the draft, Scott Bitter, Dan Morgan, the assistant general manager, and Cole Spencer, who's director of scouting, they spoke to the media and someone asked them, hey, Bryce Young, 5'10", 204, probably more 190, 195, as you mentioned, an outlier. We've never seen a player with his height and his weight have long-term success in the NFL. Not saying that it can't. The game has certainly changed, but they have a plan. Nutritionally, Scott Bitter talked about, hey, with age, he's going to add weight. We all know that as we get older, we add on weight. Bryce Young,
unfortunately true.
As an athlete, it's not going to really change. And you can look at a player like Russell Wilson, who has a thicker build, but he also weighed in at 204 11 years ago when he was drafted by Scott Bitter, John Snyder, Dan Morgan, all of them in Seattle, and he's now listed at 215 on the Broncos website. I don't know if Bryce Young will ever get to 215, but they believe that they can work with him nutritionally and strength and conditioning wise and get him to a manageable weight where he can be more durable. And they also look at the fact that Alabama, the only time he was ever injured was this past season against Arkansas, where he fell the wrong way, missed the game, came back against Tennessee, and threw for 500 yards on his injured throwing shoulder. So it's not like he went to college, had a numerous amount of injuries, and that's been an issue going to the NFL. So they have a plan for him nutritionally. We'll see whether it works, because the biggest and the brightest in the NFL, like Cam Newton, who was here in Carolina, have fallen apart because of how physical this game is. And the hope is that they can do enough to help Bryce Young be able to manage the next 5, 10 plus years here in Carolina as their franchise quarterback.
I hope Bryce Young's nutritional plans go better than mine have over the years. Let's talk about the situation that he now walks into. You have a new head coach in Frank Reich, who helped the Philadelphia Eagles win a Super Bowl with Nick Foles. They bring in Adam Thielen. This is an offensive line that is young and talented, a defense that is young, hungry, and talented. So what kind of offense can this team put together with Bryce Young at the helm?
We'll see what it's going to look like this year. I have my concerns. The wide receiver core is one of the worst in the NFL. It helps that you bring in Hayden Hurst, who is free agent from Cincinnati, and Miles Sanders, who can both supplement the passing game for Carolina. The best situation, though, is that they have a strong offensive line. Now, Austin Corbett, the right guard, he tore his ACL in Week 18, so there'll be concerns heading into Week 1, whether he'll be ready or not. But overall, the offensive line is very strong, and that's been a point of weakness the last couple seasons. There's been conversations the last couple of drafts whether the Panthers should have taken Justin Fields, should they have taken a flyer on a Kenny Pickett or some of the other quarterbacks last year. Those guys were not coming into a situation where they were going to have success with the 5 men in front of them. that will be the case now. And now with Frank Reich, who has, of course, played the position, he's been an OC, coached this position, having success, having won a Super Bowl with Deuce Staley by his side, who's the assistant head coach. And you add in Parks Frazier, who's the passing game coordinator, called plays for interim head coach Jeff Saturday last year in Indianapolis when Frank Reich was fired. You have Josh McCown, who's not that far removed from playing the position. And Andy Dalton is here as that bridge veteran quarterback who talked about earlier this week, being in the same position that Bryce Young is now in. He can be that mentor and allow the Carolina Panthers to go about the process of bringing him along slowly. And then when the time is right, they can put Bryce Young out there. Now, as far as expectations this year with this offense, I don't know. It's TBD. We'll see how it looks like. I think more so you're concerned about getting Bryce out there, having the protection, which they certainly have, and then seeing those flashes. And then next offseason, with plenty of cap space, go out there and find some true number one type wide receivers, which they certainly do not have on this roster right now.